everything at some point. So at some point, whatever's under all of that ice is going to melt away, and it's just going to be out there in plain view for everyone to see. So it's one of those things you can only keep it a secret for so long at this point. So I don't think that they're going to keep it a secret until the whole thing's melted, but at some point we're going to be able to see it all.
I did hear of a craft that is sticking out of the ice quite dramatically that they're trying to hide on Google Earth and other imagery, using three-dimensional imagery and stuff, and trying to cover it up. Do you know about this?
Yeah, so recently there was a photograph of what they're calling an ice ship that looks like a boat that's been frozen in the water. My understanding is that they changed that, so instead of it looking just like a cylinder tube on the ground, they made it look like an icebreaker or something that's there. But yeah, my understanding is that's literally something sticking up out of the ice that is not an icebreaker, is not an actual sea, vessel. Right.
And also a scientific team did discover flying over this giant crevasse, this hole in the ground. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, there is a hole at the South Pole, and there's one at the North Pole. So the one at the South Pole is the one that people know the least about, or probably have seen the least of. The northern one is the one in which old sailors, when they would talk about approaching the edge of the world and would see this, long edge of the ocean falling down into nowhere. Well, it's big enough that if you're on a boat, you can't see end to end, right? So it would seem like it stretches endlessly, but it doesn't. It just goes in a big circle. My understanding is that the water underneath the ocean, which according to NASA has more water than the oceans have it. So there's more water on the planet under the oceans than we have in the oceans. Just try to grasp that for a second. And that there's essentially a recycling process. So as water at the north falls down into the hole, it goes down into the bottom, which then just pushes back up in the oceans and, balances out the water levels. So, but all the drawings and so forth from sailors back in the old days saying it's the end of the world. No, that was the hole at the North Pole, which is in the middle of the water, as opposed to one that's South Pole that is in the middle of a landmass. But apparently they're the most direct ways to get to the Agartha network is through those holes. Not saying that they're not guarded. You can just go down there without someone saying, what are you doing down here? But those are, my understanding, the most direct access points, which is why the base was built down at that point right next to it, so that there was an easy in and out between the species in the Agartha network and the base on the surface. And whatever was happening on the surface at the time, it was so long ago. My understanding, like 400, 500,000